Good evening, everyone. I'm Reshma Krishnamurthy from Mums and Stories, and today we have on our live session an author interaction, and this is for one of the books, who are for Bollywood fans, and it's like a bumper. You have four books in one set, so. Diptakirti Chaudhuri, he is a marketing professional as his profile reads out during the day. And I think he loves Bollywood far too much, and that's why he's focused on writing so many articles about the Hindi film industry and also, not just articles, of course, books as well. Today, we're here to discuss the Pocketbook Series. They come in the four-in-one set published by Hachette. And welcome to Mums and Stories, Dipto. I hope I pronounced it right.
Yes, that's correct. Dipto is what most people call me. So thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Sure. So, particularly, when we talk about these books on films and your books that is there. So, how did you get into this? And then do you research or you observe, watch films more than once or twice to observe the nuances of filmmaking and research, or used to go to libraries, now probably the internet and other stuff, or even speak to. Uh, People from the film industry? What does happen?
Okay, yeah. I mean, the short answer is all of the above. Uh, but just to, give a sort of a flavor of what I do. I mean, this is my seventh. I mean, if you count these four as one book, this is my seventh book. Uh, my first Bollywood book came out in 2012. That's 10 years back. So, and my research, inadvertently, my research probably started 20, 30 years prior to that because I've always been a very avid movie watcher. Yes, I have watched many films multiple number of times, and I never pass up an opportunity to watch a film whenever, wherever that happens. So, uh, in the early times, mm, earlier days when I was growing up, I was also extremely keen on quizzing. So that kind of made me look forward to a lot of trivia in unusual places, including
Yeah,
Hindi cinema. And I kind of started, so this became a bit of a curiosity for me to kind of collect these, and these things stayed with me. Then sometime in around 2006 7, I started writing a blog where I used to start putting these trivia and interesting stuff about films, and that got its own set of readers who used to contribute with their own observations and things. I mean, you know how blogs happen, where
yes,
readers kind of add on to what you have written. They agree with you, sometimes they disagree with you vehemently, so that creates a nice
yes,
discussion point. And these things kept adding, and so a lot of it is, as I said, from, I would say the majority of it is from watching movies. uh, a lot of it is from reading about movies, mostly film magazines, and from my childhood, right from my childhood days till now. In recent times, there has been a fair bit of stuff on internet, but I still feel that there is a certain charm in reading old magazines, old books, rare books, going to archives and trying to find out. Stuff which is not there on the internet. Anything that's on the internet is just a search away, right? So the fun part of it is that when you figure out two very diverse strands of information, and then you try to build a sort of a connect, and then you speak to like-minded people, a lot of which can be found on Twitter, for example, or on movie discussion boards, and all of these come together uh, to become these books as they have.
definitely. You know, as a country, I think we are a lot. We focus on a lot on films, Hindi films, or probably even the regional films. But of course, Hindi film industry is a large chunk of film viewers. So I find it also, since the time I've started Mums and Stories, that's the time I've been noticing that a lot of mothers find this as an escape routine. Perhaps it's true for others also, but mums find it from the routine, mundane stuff. So, do you feel that I read somewhere actually that got me interested in one of the articles where you mentioned that it was your mother who has been a Bollywood fan, and is it from her that you got the interest, and who's been your favorite Bollywood moms?
Yeah, I mean, yes. So my mother is the original Bollywood fan in the family, and there is absolutely no doubt that I got this whole thing from her. Uh, so when I was like sort of like a little beyond a toddler, I accompanied her to watch movies. And I mean and we were then and we are now fairly indiscriminate about our movie watching choices. So if there was something which used to happen on Sunday, Doordarshan, from if it was running somewhere nearby in a movie theater, some of my favorites are, I mean, favorites now are from the time that when we started watching. So be it R.D. Burman or Nasir Hussain or Shami Kapoor, Amitabh Bachchan, Salim Javed, all these started with the two of us watching a lot of these Bollywood masala films and thoroughly enjoying it. So yes, my mother, I think I was one of her many movie watching partners, and she was definitely my first movie watching partner. And even now, I mean, we have a lot of, I mean, we keep chatting about movies and film gossip and all of it all the time. Uh, the second part of your question, who's my favorite movie mother? I think in recent times, I mean, of course, there are iconic mothers like Mother India and Biwar and the like. And incidentally, Mother India is one of the one of what I is in the characters book, and one of my, I mean, obviously, it's one of the most iconic in Hindi film terms. I think my favorite, I mean, if I not go by the greatest, but my favorite, I think my favorite would be one of the recently seen the more modern mums, like the one played by Ratna Pathak Shah in Jane Tu Ya Jane Na. I thought she was a very cool mom. She was very real. She was very funny. She
Yes.
was her son's friend. And yeah, and that's something I really enjoy. In fact, she did another very interesting role in Kapoor and Sons,
Yes.
which is a very that's not a typically the self sacrifice, I mean the sacrificing mother that uh, Hindi film is used to. It was a very different, it was a very real, very flawed kind of a character, and I like that also. So I think those are two of my favorites from recent times.
All right. Talking about iconic characters, one of the books that you have, of course, when one talks about you speak from, right from 1940s onwards till 2018 and 19. Also, you've been speaking about, certain films and characters and everything. But Gabbar Singh, when you talk about Amjad Khan and Gabbar Singh, both of them are inseparable. You have to think about as an individual. And did the then you also speak about the story behind it, how the character came into place. So a little bit more on the real life dacoit he lived. Gabbar Singh was actually a dacoit who lived in India.
Yes, yes. And as I had kind of mentioned, I mean, I just kind of do a summary of the thing that so it's very interesting that Sholay had two writers, Salim Khan and Javed Akhtar. Salim Khan's father was a very senior police officer in what was then called Central Provinces, today's Madhya Pradesh. And Gabbar Singh was a dacoit in his territory. I mean, he was one of the policemen fighting that dacoit, and it was a notorious one who had this very alarming quirk about who he cut off people's, I mean, his enemies' noses. Uh,
Oh,
and
okay.
this story was told by Salim Khan's father to him when he was I mean, young boy, and it kind of stayed with him. That a terrifying dacoit. When you're a child, you remember these things a lot more, right? So this stayed with him, and he grew up somewhere. This story remained somewhere in his in the back of his mind. And parallel to that is the story of Amjad Khan. Javed Akhtar once attended a youth festival in Delhi, much before he was a writer, when he was probably a student. He visited Delhi, and Amjad Khan played the character, I mean, gave a brilliant performance in a play there. And that stayed with him. I mean,
Oh,
now this happened when Javed Akhtar was probably a teenager, and the
yes.
Gabbar Singh story happened when Salim Khan was probably a little boy. But both these stories came together when they were writing Sholay in the early 70s, and probably around 73, 74, they were writing Sholay. And then they decided that that's the story of the dacoit, and this is the character who's going to play this dacoit, which is Amjad Khan. And they faced a lot of opposition, because everybody in that film was a star, like Dharmendra, Hema Malini, Sanjeev Kumar.
Yes.
They were huge stars. Even Amitabh Bachchan was on his way to becoming a star, but Gabbar Singh was a complete newcomer. So everybody had a lot of reservations that why do you want this completely random newcomer to play this role? But they held their ground because they felt that the unpredictability of Gabbar, that nobody has seen anything like that. They considered Danny, they considered Premnath, they considered many other
Okay.
people for that role, but they felt that this role needed an unpredictability, that
Okay.
you do not know what this guy will do next, and so they insisted on. So the story of Gabbar Singh as a dacoit or a character, and Amjad Khan the actor, it kind of is like a probably a 10-20 year journey that came together in Sholay. So yeah, it's of course, one of the most
I know.
legendary
I think it
characters.
really paid off, that they stuck on to ground on that for Gabbar Singh, for Amjad Khan. Okay, before we go into the next question, probably you can ask a question for our viewers, and hopefully that you cannot find the answer easily on Google. One particular question, and let's see if they can get it right. They might win a copy of the Pocketbook series.
Sure. So what I'll do is that there is this very famous film journalist called B.K. Karanjia, who used to write in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and so on. So about a particular film personality, journalist B.K. Karanjia had said that the roles Amitabh Bachchan plays now, I mean now meaning in the 70s, played in the 70s, are subtler versions of the roles played by Dash. So obviously, here is a film personality of the 1940s, 50s, etc. I'm not telling you when, sometime before the 70s. The roles that film personality played are actually sort of grander versions of what Amitabh Bachchan played. So if we thought Amitabh Bachchan was the angry young man and the origin of the action movies in Hindi cinema, so they were actually watered down version of some other film personality. So the
Oh,
question
okay.
to the audience is, who is this film personality who was the quote unquote original Amitabh Bachchan?
All right. I'll ask those interested to please comment on the question that Deepto has just put out. And yeah, we'll probably give it about 10 minutes time before you respond. All right, going to the next booklet over here, from the series Iconic Places. When we talk about, I think tourism in India or perhaps for elsewhere also, it's largely driven by so many things. In India, particularly, we get so fascinated, moved by this. This movie was shot here, this film song was shot here, a palace or a fort. Goa perhaps got that additional boost by Dil Chata Hai, or Ramnagaram, which became Ramgarh for Sholay in near Bengaluru. And you speak about Yash Chopra's movies, how he brought about so many things, the Swiss locales and everything. But you also speak about the time when, earlier there was other filmmakers who did it. So probably you can speak about the earlier filmmakers who actually brought about this location kind of a thing
Yeah, of
for the
course.
audience. Yeah.
Yes, of course. So I think Yash Chopra's films came at a very opportune moment when, in the, let's say, the mid to late 80s, when India was opening up. I mean, and foreign travel became a lot more easy, a lot easier for Indians. So people saw these beautiful places in things like Chandni, Lamhe, and all of that, and they flocked to those places to the point that, I mean, I'm told that there are signs in places like Jungfrau and Interlaken. There are signs in not only Hindi but also Gujarati and all of that. I mean, because and there are samosas available. So Indian tourists have pretty much overrun Switzerland. But actually, what I found while I was doing this research, what I realized is that two and nearly 2.5 decades before the 90s, the first, I mean, film to have extensively shot in Europe was Raj Kapoor's Sangam. And when Raj Kapoor was asked that why did you spend so much money shooting in Europe, he said that, look, there are a lot of Indians here and who want to kind of associate, I mean, the place they live with the people they worship, which are the film stars. And he wanted to bring that. So he spent a very large, very, uh, I mean, a significant amount of money of Sangam was spent in the foreign locales of Europe, and not only Switzerland. He went to Paris and a whole lot of other places there, where the whole, so Sangam has this huge 1 hour segment in which pretty much every major European capital, from Italy to France to Switzerland, everything is covered.
Yes.
And that kind of started a trend that in the 60s there was of course Sangam, then there was An Evening in Paris, there was Love in Tokyo, there were a whole lot of, there were
Yes.
Around the World, there were these whole lot of films that kind of started becoming, films became very flashy, they became very glitzy, and they started going to these foreign locales, because prior to that it was mostly Kashmir and Shimla. Then suddenly this thing changed from changed with Sangam. And I realized, I mean, now that, I mean, I was noticing that there was An Evening in Paris, which is Shakti Shamanto's film, and then there is Love in Tokyo, which I think was done by Pramod Chakraborty. And so there were this whole set of directors who decided to take their audience on a tour of Europe. And that kind of had a belated resurrection in Yash Chopra's films. And of course, Yash Chopra
Yes.
managed to show it like no other, because
No
you
other. I
saw
know.
that and you actually wanted to go to that place.
All right. We have Samir who's responded saying it's Guru Dutt to the question you asked. Is it?
No, it's not.
Okay.
I can.
Just repeat the question one more time, Deepto, and then
Yeah.
probably.
So about this film personality, journalist B.K. Karanjia said, the roles Amitabh Bachchan played in the 70s are subtler versions of the roles played by Dash. So you have to give me the name of this film personality.
Should we give them a hint? Probably it's really too tough.
Okay. This is an older than Gurudat, somebody who's not significantly, but much before Gurudat.
Okay. All right. And now one more chapter from Bollywood when it comes to dates was about the time rather when Punit Desar and Amitabh Bachchan had this fight sequence, and you know unknowingly perhaps, obviously, it was an accident and it became such a huge thing. You speak about that in one of the books over here, the Coolie accident, and how Amitabh Bachchan, the actor, was turned into this god because of the nation was praying for him. Yes, so tell us something about it.
Yeah, then I mean, this is again a sort of the starting point of this was a personal memory that I remember in the 1982, to be precise. when this happened, that there was a rumor that Amitabh Bachchan had passed away. I mean, because of that, and this happened when we were in Calcutta. I still remember my grandmother coming back from a sort of an evening walk, and she said that, you know what, that I just heard that he has passed away, and it was a rumor all across because he was declared clinically dead for a few minutes after a sort of not so successful operation. Then, of course, he resurrected, and that became what I believe, and what I am trying to say in this book is that there is a period when Amitabh Bachchan became a star, which was probably when he tasted success with Zanjeer, Diwar, etc. And from that star, there was a point in time when he started making films with Manmohan Desai, like Parvarish, Amar Akbar Anthony, Dawn, with Chandra Barot, and all of that, where he became a full-fledged entertainer. I mean, there was anything and everything in the film, from songs to fights to comedy, everything would be done by Amitabh Bachchan. That reached a sort of a crescendo with Coolie, or around the time when Coolie was came out. And when he had that, it was a time when the entire country kind of came together for its biggest star, and they prayed together. I mean, there were stories of, I mean, uh, I'm getting goosebumps now as I'm saying it, that there were like stories of this amazing communion of the fans with the stars, where they believe that, look, this guy is, I mean, we have to put in our collective prayers to like bring back this person we love so
Back.
much, and he
Yes.
did. And I believe that from that point onwards, Amitabh Bachchan became like a god. He became like, and
Oh,
sort of a he transcended that bit about stars and superstars. I mean, before him, Rajesh Khanna was a huge star, and there were many stars before that. But he reached a level which is kind of beyond cinema. He permeated every part of the Indian society, so to speak. He started giving his darshan, I mean, his weekly darshan, the Sunday darshan, that even now, if he is in Bombay, if you go in front of his house on Sundays, he will come out and wave. That
it
started
started
just
after that. It
that
started after.
started just after that, because he felt that he needed to come out. Because what
Okay.
happened, that when he was in the hospital, the people used to assemble in front of his house to kind of pray for his recovery and all of that. And Amitabh Bachchan felt that after he recovered, he needed to come out and kind of thank his fans. So that became a ritual, and that kept on happening, and it's been continuing for the last 40 years. I mean, even today, if he's in town, he comes and
Yes.
does that Sunday darshan. Roads are blocked out for that 1 hour period. you know if you are in that vicinity, you're supposed
Yes.
to go and do that. It's like one of the must do things in
Yes.
Bombay. So I
You know,
feel
in
that,
the
sorry.
sorry, in the South, we do have film actors and actresses, perhaps, who worship like this. But apart from Amitabh Bachchan, any other actor you felt who's got this kind of this cult status, you know?
I think this level of cult, and I mean, this is a personal opinion. I think the only other person who has kind of matched this is Shah Rukh Khan after that.
Okay.
And because he also has I mean, it is not as regular as Mr. Bachchan's thing, but he has his house is a
That's
bit of a Bombay landmark. And if you visit Bombay, you have to go and visit Mannat. Incidentally, in
it.
the places book, Mannat is one of the places which I think is one of the
Yes.
iconic things of Hindi cinema, because I feel that whole this stardom and the associated fandom with it, that a star is a star because of his or her fans, right? That you stand outside, like you said, that about South, and of course there are temples
Yes.
dedicated
Yes.
to southern stars and all of that. But I think Amitabh Bachchan and Shah Rukh Khan, I mean, if you call their houses, which are again landmarks, if you call them sort of their shrines, so they have reached that level of crazy fandom, I would say.
Awesome. Aarti says Dilip Kumar to the question.
It's older than that also.
Oh my God. In fact, even I thought it would be Dilip Kumar. Okay, all right. Let's see if somebody else gets it in the next probably 5 to 10 minutes. So, when you talk about films, the last 2 years, the pandemic has changed so much. The way we view films, and from the time of PVR, and that is Priya Village Road. What was that?
Roadshow.
Roadshow, yeah, Priya Village Roadshow, how it turned into this elitist kind of mass crowd puller to now how we were watching on OTT platforms. What do you think is the way forward actually? I mean, are we going to be sticking to this, or do you think multiplexes have to really do something, or probably the filmmakers? They're trying their best to get the audiences back. What do you think is going to happen?
Look, I mean, if I look at, I mean, Hindi cinema as the product, and the multiplexes or single screen theaters as the way to reach audiences, then Hindi film, there is no other product that has had so many resurrections as Hindi cinema. Like when, if you remember in the 1980s, when the video boom had started, everybody predicted that film theaters will shut down because you could watch a film inside your home for a fraction of the price at a lot more convenience and all of that. And again, incidentally, the video cassettes are also one part of one of these books that they as a because there was a period in time when people thought ki boss, cinemas will shut down, and cinemas did shut down at that point in time. Similarly, when multiplexes came, people, I mean, I don't think in the early days people thought that multiplex will become very popular, because for once the ticket prices were significantly higher to the point that people used to think that शायद इस film से, I mean, एक ticket से we'll get to watch 3 films or 4 films, something like that, because the ticket prices were 2-3 times of the normal, I mean, single screen theater prices. But what PVRs to start with, and many other multiplex chains that came after that, what they managed to do is to they make the complete movie watching an urbanized thing. I mean, it is now possible to make a very big budget film run successfully only in urban centers, large metros or smaller cities, and recover all your money and become a huge hit. You don't even need to go to the smaller towns or where. Now, of course, the flip side of it is that the smaller towns also now have multiplexes. There would not be a single
Mhm.
uh, reasonably large town in India which does not have a multiplex. So, to that extent, I thought that immediately after the PVR came, we saw Dil Chahta Hai, which is, I would say, the first multiplex movie, because it was very urban, very different sensibility from the usual Hindi film friendships and Hindi
Yes.
film romances that we had seen till now. So I would say PVR changed movie watching and movie making both. I mean, movie watching is obvious, but it also changed how movies are made, because directors and producers now realize that there is a different audience who wants a different experience. So there are one of the complaints that we see about Hindi, we hear about Hindi cinema right now, is that there are no poor people. You don't get to see the issues of, like you saw in Diwar, that there is a dock worker becoming big. Now you get very few films like this. These are, I mean, we see rich people's problems and so on and so forth. So to that extent, it made that transition, and PVR was the sort of the tipping point where it. And from then, now we are at where we are moving into these streaming platforms and OTT channels and all of that. I think even here it is a temporary blip that we are seeing, where we are feeling that OTTs will take over movie
Yes.
watching, I mean, or multiplexes will shut down, and I'm sure there will be some impact on theaters in the short term. In fact, one of the, I think the last date in the book is
Yes. In the
about
book.
when Gulabo Sitabo released on Amazon Prime, and which I believe is a tipping point, from that saying that this was the first big budget, multi-star starrer Amitabh Bachchan, Ayushman Khurrana, and the film not releasing in the theaters because they said, hey, we will not wait for the pandemic to end, we will go directly to the audience. And so, from single screen to multiplex to OTT, it is a journey. And it has taken 20 years, because the first multiplex opened in the late 90s, early 2000s. And now we are in 2020 when this Gulabo Sitabo movement happened. So it's a very interesting journey that we are seeing. And I mean, I'm sure it will evolve, it will become different, it will become new, and there will be other surprises. uh, I think every 20 years, Hindi film industry sees a new thing. So video came in the early 80s. multiplex came in the early 2000s, and now in the early 2020s we are seeing the OTT
Absolutely.
wave
Or a
coming in.
specific film which will get the audience back again,
Yeah,
probably.
and there will be. I'm told that Gangubai Kathiawadi is doing such great business that again
Yes,
the
by the
audiences are
reports.
coming
Yes,
back.
yes.
Yeah, maybe something else will happen.
Okay. Aarti again answers it as Raj Kapoor.
Okay, now we are getting closer to that. So,
Oh,
if I'm allowed to give a final hint, should I give a final
yes,
hint
the
or should I?
final hint and no more hints.
I am not sure why all our audiences are thinking of male stars.
Oh my God, that's fascinating for me now.
Yes. So, I mean, don't think of male stars only.
Oh, wow. All right. So, yes, it was about Amitabh Bachchan. A particular journalist had spoken about him and showed and mentioned him as the subtler version of a dash star. Okay. Now, Aarti again, lastly, probably Geeta Dutt, she says. I don't know if she got it.
No, that's not correct.
All
Should
right.
I
Okay.
give away the
Coming to
answer,
the,
or should
yeah,
I?
yes, yeah. Probably at the end of the next question.
Okay, sure, sure, sure.
Yeah, the last question. If at all somebody has to watch Hindi films, somebody who's new, and you have to recommend three films from the 1940s or the 50s, three films or four films that you say you have to watch it. So which one would these be?
Okay. If I am going to say that, I mean, what brings the grandness of Hindi films best, I would go with Mughal-e-Azam from the 1960s. I would go with Sholay from the 1970s, and I would go with Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge from the 1990s. These are, I mean, these are like a more like show how well, I mean, how, the grandeur of Hindi cinema,
Grand Europe.
these things, I think, or the evolving audiences, or whatever you call it. I think these three films capture the best. Uh, yeah, so if somebody has to start watching Hindi films, they should start with these three.
Okay. Deepto, probably you should give the answer. She's going on responding with all the actresses' names now.
Okay, so the answer is that, and this is one of the earlier chapters of the characters book. So there is this amazing character called Fearless Nadia. So she was India's first action star. Uh, she acted, I mean, well known for her films like Hunter Wali and Hurricane Hansa and several such. I mean, she is literally India's first action star because, I mean, even male stars did not do as much daredevil action as Nadia did in
Oh,
her films. And yeah, so she was an absolute, that crusader, angry young woman. She was twins separated at birth, becoming one of them becoming a fighter, one of them becoming a sort of a demure sort of a person. So she has done all of that. So unfortunately, not many of her films are available in full form in right now, but YouTube has a lot of her snippets and things like that. So that's something I would recommend to uh, people who want to go back and explore the beginnings of Hindi cinema. So Fearless Nadia would be the one.
awesome. Thank you for taking time and speaking to us, Deepto, and
Thank
wishing
you. I
you the
really
very
enjoyed
best.
this conversation.
Thank you so much, and wishing you the very best for the next set of books that you write on Bollywood.
Thank you so much. All the best to you too.
Thank you.